If you love what we do, then please consider supporting Cryptfail on Patreon. Your support helps us grow and to create more content more often. And now, on with the show.
The year is 1915, and the world is at war. Middle Europa was an empire already pulling itself to pieces, long before they made their grab for power that started it all. 8 states held tenuously together by their Kaiser, who seeks to return his nation to its former glory. The Western nations took notice. Led by the Kingdom of Lions, they opposed Middle Europa and their allies, leading to the Great War. Millions have met their deaths in the endless tide of mud and blood and bullets and toxic gas, but the war that chewed them up and spat out their bones shows no sign of slowing down. In the midst of this obvious devastation, a more subtle threat has also emerged. Slivers of creeping dread needle those with the ability to notice them. The world that is at war is changing in ways it shouldn't, ways it shouldn't be able to. Events are undone, overwritten, continuity is warping, and if nothing is done, reality itself could be at risk. As the struggle for power overlaps with the struggle to preserve reality, loyalty and duty may be called into question, pitted against serving the greater good or even just surviving. This is the world of Carbon Grey.
Issa darts forward, past the guards, her ears ringing. As she starts bolting up the stairs, lightning strikes the house. Shudders through the whole house. The chandelier that some of you now notice is the main source of light for this room, hanging from the chain, starts to swing violently and flickers off. Everything in the area goes black. And there's a brief pause in the sound of rain, as if the sound of thunder itself had knocked the rain away from the house just briefly. And then bang, there's several bangs, bang, bang. And all of a sudden the door in front of Xander slams shut. Peter, who can see guards coming from a room off towards the front left-hand corner of the house, momentarily saw that door slam shut as the lights just went out. Issa is darting upstairs while Xander's lying on the floor with a dagger in his side. And everything's gone black for everybody except for Issa, who sees everything in a
purple
shade
glow.
of violet.
Is Greta still dead?
And Greta is still dead. But Werner is on the stairs in the cellar with the door closed in front of him. Xander's lying on top of the guard who tried to put up his hands, resisting the blade coming down closer and closer. And Xander briefly remembers the young face of the guard looking quite afraid. And as the knife slowly slipped in through his chest and pierced his heart. He let out a slow gurgle, eyes pleading in terror.
Xander's kind of slumped on top of the body, exhausted. And he's using his free hands to cover the wounds that he received from the knife earlier.
And the dagger had stabbed you, but had fallen out because only it went in partially. So it wasn't enough to stick all the way in. What's Peter doing? Who's now standing around the edge of the bookshelf, which is in the hallway leading to the small amphitheater area.
So it's still pitch black, right?
Pitch black.
That doesn't
Like,
change.
yeah, it was like a bright white light, and the lights themselves in the house glowed brighter, and then it was suddenly everything went black, and everyone's eyes are still adjusting.
Well, he's gonna hold where he is until he can make something out.
He's on the stairs. He's just listening at the moment.
Issa's still running up the stairs.
Yep, you reach the top of the stairs, and you can see that there are rooms up the top of the stairs and hallways up to left and right.
All right, and Greta had said which one the children were in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, then she is headed for that room.
Okay, so everything's sort of, you can see everything in a shade of violet, but where you are headed to, the room, the door is glowing exceptionally bright.
Okay.
And you can hear the sounds, the faint sounds of crying and whimpering within the room itself.
Okay, and she's gonna try and open the door.
The door to this particular room is so brightly lit in your eyes that you can see there's two distinct images of a door overlapped from each other. One's a plain door, nothing adorning it at all, and a very straightforward turning handle, and the other one is a latched golden handle with a hanging of embroidery on it.
Hey.
And there's there's those two distinct doors, and being able to use your own mind's eye to perceive the difference in both of them, knowing which one to use, to turn, to open. Stretch out your senses.
Okay.
To open the more extravagant door, and it opens.
And if it opens, she will then step inside.
Leading you into a room that has no carpet. The carpets have been stripped off the floors. It's just hardwood floor. Not that you've come across carpet in any other place in the house, but in some bedrooms, especially the well-off, well-to-do bedrooms, some will have been carpeted, but solid wooden floors, very plain looking room. Nothing hanging from the walls. There's a big arched window that's semi boarded up with curtains over it. Heavy set, dark curtains. No lights. Even the light bulbs in the room have been removed. No beds except for plain, almost straw mattresses on the floor, and about a dozen kids off to one side, huddled in a corner, poorly dressed. They look malnourished and frightened and scared. And in the center of the room is a boy of about 10 years old, and he's just standing there with his fists down by his side, and his tears are just streaming down his face.
Okay, she'll approach the boy in the middle of the room, but also other people can do other stuff.
I was just about to switch back to everybody.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. She's approaching the boy in the middle of the room.
Okay, so what happened with that door?
Just wonderful things, I'm sure.
Yeah, you started feeling the tear happening.
Okay.
Okay, Xander.
Yes. Xander is trying to stay conscious, holding his wound. And he's looking around at the other people in the room. You bring medical supplies.
I am not trained in it.
I'm the doctor, but I can't see that well. It's very dark, no?
Peter, do you think you could help patch up my wound?
I could if we had some light.
And Xander reaches into his into his robes, and you can see that he has a rucksack there. And using his good hands, he will pull out some candles. I'm trying, and his brow creases, and it looks like he's trying to make flame appear, but nothing is happening. It's too damp in here. I can't produce any flame at the moment. Where did Werner end up? Wasn't he just with us?
The door shut.
He's down in the basement?
Yes. Yes. And the child is upstairs. Which we should probably go see him.
Oh, all right.
And all of a
guess-
sudden you hear the banging on one of the doors coming from the rooms
Which rooms?
downstairs. And then a little bit of a flash of light that appears through the door where the door had closed on the guards.
I'll see if I can help out the child. Maybe you can get this door open. I don't think I'm strong enough with only one arm. So Xander's gonna kind of lean against the wall with his good arm and kind of lift himself up, grabbing onto a shelf or like a table nearby to steady himself. Wobbly gets to his feet. Can you pass me a bandage or something? I'll just wrap it for now so it doesn't bleed everywhere.
Peter will open up his doctor's bag, grab a bandage, and I would assume sewing kit. I don't know what their equivalent would be. I don't really know what the exact medical thing is. A needle and thread.
You might have a suture kit, but I doubt Xander's going to
Roll.
stitch himself up.
Oh,
Yeah. And roll perception,
Oh.
investigate. It is being quite difficult to try and find your way around your medical kit in the dark. Trying to find the what are you looking for? Suture kit or just the bandage?
bandage, and I was hoping to find a needle and thread or something like that.
Nope, you can feel the bandage, but that's about it. Xander has moved, so you'll have to, because it is completely pitch black.
Well, you will hand him the bandage if he can find him.
Yeah, just give it here. And kind of holds out his hand, and they awkwardly bump around in the dark, but eventually the handoff works. And Xander will take the bandage and just wrap it around his arm. It's like a long tensor bandage. So he just wraps it around and just tucks one in and all right, good enough for now. And he's going to follow the wall to the stairs. When he hears the axe trying to break down the door, he's gonna kind of speed walk. And yeah, he'll probably break into a run. He sort of remembers where the stuff is that he's seen, but so he's able to avoid like the big objects that might be in his way. But if there's like bodies on the ground, he might trip over them.
Yeah, because there's a body next to the bookshelf.
Oh.
Oh, that's the one Peter killed, and then there's 3 in the amphitheater.
Peter will attempt to open the door.
Xander, you scramble across the room, and all of a sudden your foot trips up against a ball, a heavy ball-like object, and you trip over, landing almost face first onto the floor into a pool of blood next to a body that groans.
Oh, gross. And he's kind of like trying to wipe his. He landed with both his hands, which has caused his wound to bleed again. And he tries to wipe his hands off on his shirt or on his cloak. And he's going to kind of feel around in the dark. Does he find a body?
Yes, and the body's sort of like trying to, you can feel it trying to reach out and grab you, and it sort of grabs the collar of your shirt, trying to pull you towards it.
Xander is going to pull his knife out from under his cloak and bring it down on the body. He's really hoping it's not a child.
Ugh. Hoping but not checking before stabbing.
It's just checking. Are you a child? Answer me, God damn it! And your knife strikes true, and you feel it sink into the flesh of the body, and it lets out a little yelp and starts to gargle. And
How little a yelp.
Duh.
like a manly yelp.
A manly yelp.
I don't know.
And he's going to kind of feel his way in the dark, looking to see if this guard has dropped a firearm of some sort,
Yep.
perhaps an automatic one.
There's a bolt action rifle. Well, a long rifle. You can feel that it's definitely not. It doesn't have like a magazine on it, but near the breech there's a bolt, which is currently open, and all up one side of it is all slippery. It's very, very difficult to hold.
He's going to leave it where it is then. He was hoping for something he wouldn't have to aim very well with. And he'll get back to his feet. Then he's going to grab the gun and use it as a crutch to, like a walking stick almost. Still holding it in his hand, he'll walk towards where he thinks the stairs are.
19.
All right. And the door starts to open, but at great resistance. All right, so it's your scene. You open it up just enough to either Peter to squirm in or Werner to squirm out.
Werner's going to try to get out.
Peter will back away.
He will squeeze through and crouch down. Where was the gunfire coming from?
And just as you say that, the whole area lights up. Xander, you're walking towards the front door. You can see outside is pouring down rain.
And Xander will run as fast as he can to the stairs and begin climbing them.
Where are the others?
There's
I will fire my last 3 rounds through the door where the shots came from and cross to the stairs and then use the staircase as cover.
Oh,
Ah.
shite, that's a hit.
Why is that bad?
Oh, no, I was just surprised that he met the target number because it was quite
I
high.
see.
That was a 20 to hit. So what's the benefit?
So he darts out and just starts firing through the door, just letting the revolvers just crashing as it's firing off the rounds. And one of those shots happens to impact on one of the guards, who he can't see, but he hears a cry and then a thump as the individual collapses to the ground. The other guys don't know if he was lucky or he's really good, and they're not quite as eager now to rush them as they may previously have been.
Mm-hmm. Ah! Okay.
And he will also now reload.
Yep, they've backed away from the door, and Xander appears in the middle of the room as you shoot, and then he's a few feet forward, and then he's a few feet forward again, almost this stop motion, almost like the stop motion films you've seen in theatre. But he is all covered in blood, and he's like literally leaving a trail of blood behind him.
Oh dear.
Peter will also run across and fire a shot through the doorway. So 17 plus a success. Like the good thing.
Ah! It's a flash of light lights up the area. You see Xander almost at the stairs. So the door's actually been broken down. It's just wide enough. They've managed to rip open one of the panels big enough to slide through themselves.
Yes. She's approaching a child.
Who's standing there looking like he's throwing a tantrum, but he's got tears rolling down his face. He's wearing shorts, little strapped shoes and white socks, a button-up t-shirt. His hair's cut short, almost in a bowl cut. He's quite young, about 10 years old. His freckled face and blonde hair.
And she walks over and stands right in front of him.
And the child's looking down at the floor, tears streaming down his face and falling onto the floor, and you can hear whimpering of children behind him. The children that you see from behind him are all look like they've been there for quite some time. Their clothes, while at one point may have been, from well-off families, are quite raggy. Some of their faces look quite gaunt. Their eyes sunken. They look withdrawn, malnourished, and are all upset. And there's a mixture of boys and girls, and all look quite afraid.
Okay.
And the boy standing in front of you looks up wide-eyed, almost with a terrified look in his face.
So, she's standing in front of him. She puts her hands on her hips and says, "Stop it."
And he looks at you confused, and he wipes away the tears from his cheeks and stares back almost defiantly. And he looks about the room, and a glimmer of recognition appears over his face, as if he's seeing something else, and then it disappears, and he's back to where he is now with you standing in the room. I don't know what's happening.
And she's trying to think of how to express
You
herself.
can stop! And he screams at you, and your ears are ringing, but you hear the sound of his voice echo, and it beams through your head, and you feel the fabric.
You stop. It's not. You're here. You're not there. Stop it.
Give me a will power check.
Willpower? Or yeah, it's 11.
11. Okay, just.
She's not so much calmed him down in terms of soothing him as she's sort of shocked him into silence by yelling at him to stop. And he's had to take a moment to sort of consider what is going on and why a strange child showed up to yell at him. So he's no longer panicking quite so much.
And looks back as his eyebrows narrow, and he says, "Are you here to help me?
Yes,
I want to go home."
I know. How many other kids are there?
There's about a dozen kids.
I need to find out if it's okay to leave. You stop trying to change things, please.
I'm not changing anything.
You are. Or you're trying. And she's gonna poke her head back out the door to see if there's any more gunfire or anything.
You can't hear anything, but the sound seems to drone on longer now than when you first entered the building. So the sound of this, like the rain on the roof, had a distinct pitch, and now it's droning longer.
Okay, if she can't hear any gunfire or anything, she's going to call down the stairway. Are the rest of you still there?
You get no response. There's something happening close to the epicenter that's affecting
Right.
stuff.
We need to leave. She will turn away from the boy and the rest of them in whatever language it is that they understand.
They're all Middle European.
She's gonna turn back to them and say, "We need to leave. Can you all please follow me?"
Yes, they see another child. But after you had calmed down the child in the center of the room, they seem to have calmed to your presence.
So she's still standing directly in front of the boy in the middle of the room who said he wanted to go home. Where is your home?
And he says something unintelligible to you, but you distinctly hear Auntie's house. And then low.
Lo,
Low?
you're not in the right place. Or possibly time, or possibly both. But ignoring that, you're not meant to be here. Do you know that?
And he sort of thinks about that. And he looks up confused. Here?
How did you get here?
And again, he says something unintelligible and says, Auntie.
There was another door, another room that's... You're making it so that there's two places. She's trying to explain in a language she's not very good at.
And he looks over
You-
at the door. He sees what you see, the momentary refraction of another door that overlays the existing door, and it's just brief. That recognition dawns on his face, and then the power surges up. You can feel it rising in him again.
That's where you're from, I think. Can you, if you think about where you're supposed to be, can you make the door last? I don't know.
And he looks at you confused.
If the door stays, you can go through it. Maybe. To where you're from.
Okay.
14. She's gonna put her hand on his shoulder once she feels he's starting to sort of channel more of the continuity flux.
And you feel his is very chaotic.
She's just gonna try and attempt to see if she can focus it a little bit on the door.
You can see the two fractures coming together and separate, and the door that was there is no longer there, and there is another door there.
And she looks to him to see if he recognizes it.
And there's a dawn of recognition on his face as he starts walking towards it.
Go quickly before everything falls apart.
He turns back as he reaches out to the door. He looks at you with a sadness in his face, and you can hear him say, sorry, Timothy. And the door opens, and you feel that the end of existence is almost
Oh, good.
nigh. Searing light emanates from him. Can you roll perception, instinct?
16.
Very good.
Oh. I'm gonna say, oh, that's not enough. You all die.
No. Okay, so a blinding light erupts from his position, then everything disappears. You turned away just in time.
Hope those
You
other
can
kids did
feel,
too.
you sense the continuity has returned to normal, down to a big fat zero.
Beautiful.
For those of you downstairs, there was a surge of bright light coming from upstairs, and everything has suddenly gone quiet. Even there's no rain on the roof. You can hear the dripping sounds of water from outside. There's no crying or anything upstairs.
Xander has probably reached the top of the stairs,
Yep.
so his silhouette is illuminated for the people below. And he's shielding his eyes and trying to make his way forward down the hall towards where the light came from.
There's a closed door down the end of the hall, and you can hear the sounds of whimpering.
And he's going to push it open.
Yes, the door opens, and there is a figure standing in the darkness. As the children were about to leave and are now quite scared again because it's a tall adult.
Xander, is that you?
Where did that light come from?
Someone leaving,
One of the kids?
I suppose. Did you get hurt again?
This isn't my blood.
Well, I suppose at least you didn't get hurt again, then.
And at that point, the lights come on, illuminating just how much blood is on Xander, and the kids start screaming.
It's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Look, he's practically useless. He can't hurt you.
And he kind of holds up his arms in like meant to be a non-threatening way, but he is still holding a knife.
Peter and Verna, you can hear the sound of kids screaming upstairs, and just through that, you hear this almost an unscrewing of a cap, a clink, and then someone say, "Granada." And you see a stick grenade roll into the door, roll into the hallway.
And Werner tries to take as much cover as he can.
Peter will also.
Xander, a piece of shrapnel flies up through the floor between your feet, sticking in the floorboards beneath you.
His eyes bulge.
So, some very forlorn-looking children start screaming and running down the stairs. One of them falls over, and the other ones, a couple run past you. They see you both downstairs. You know, bits of building are falling down in the smoke, and a couple of them run past you towards the open front door. And there's more. There's probably about 7 of them.
And Issa's following them because she doesn't know if anyone's left outside.
Peter and Werner are down at the bottom of the stairs, just sort of, I guess, getting over just having a grenade thrown at the opposite end of the room at them.
And Issa is following them because it does no one any good if they either run into another guard outside or get lost in the woods.
Can Peter run upstairs, seeing as a whole bunch of terrified kids just came down?
Yep. You can run upstairs.
And he's looking for any sort of threat.
There's a room at the end of the hall with the door wide open, and a Xander standing near some children. The remainder of them running, start taking off outside, barreling past Peter. Werner. Issa runs past you, chasing after some children that are fleeing in absolute fright.
He will fire in the direction where the grenade came from, if it's through that same door that he's been shooting. And then once they're past, he will follow Isa.
As kids start screaming even more, and a couple of them putting their hands to their ears as they run out into the night with Isa in hot pursuit. Well, as you turn to follow the first group, another group of children run down the stairs and barrel past you, knocking into you and running. Some knocking into you, and others running around beside you to get out the front door.
Xander pulls his cloak back on. He's got a bit of a smug look on his face as he walks back to the stairs and begins to walk down.
So Werner, once he reaches the door, he sees Issa running after several kids with some other kids following off, and they're dispersing past the gate into the wilderness.
And he will follow.
Issa's managed to corral about 4 children, basically by literally chasing them down and grabbing onto them to stop them running and convincing them to come back with her. So she's leading 4 children back towards everyone else.
They're more inclined to have gone back with someone who looks like a child as opposed to an adult who was firing guns and stuff like that, which is why
Fair.
your difficult number was a lot higher, Aaron.
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're starting to scatter a little bit, but he doesn't worry too much about being nice at this point. He just grabs them by the scruff of the neck and drags them in the direction that we need to go. And then when we get close, he sort of just pushes them with the remainder of the group.
So all total, you have 6 back at the truck so far.
As far as I know, they're still upstairs, because I don't know that Xander continued his idiocy and chased them out too.
As Issa is just returning with 4 kids at this point.
Issa is stomping through the mud, going back over to Xander and glaring at him as hard as she can glare. Where are the other children?
Didn't they come down the stairs?
I don't know. I left chasing the ones you terrified into running out into the wilderness where they could have gotten lost and died. So I was sort of hoping you would know where the rest of them were.
They aren't in the house full of bad people.
You are an idiot, and I am never talking to you again. And she wheels around and heads back out looking for the rest of the kids.
You're putting the current kids in the back of the truck, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
Xander will watch them, don't worry.
Reassuring.
And such a good job of that.
What happened up there?
The kids weren't gonna go anywhere, so I pretended to scare them so that they would run down the stairs and out of the house in a timely manner.
Peter looks very, visibly confused, and he just nods in acceptance, seeing as he can't change the past.
And Werner will turn around and go, where is she going?
I think she's going to look for the kids. I assumed they would all kind of group together, but it seems they may have scattered.
Dummkopf. He wheels around, slides his carbine off his shoulder, and starts trying to follow the little person.
So, after about 10 minutes, Issa and Werner will reappear at the truck, herding the remaining 6 children.
Xander is standing by the... Or not Xander. Standing by the truck. Xander's standing by the truck with quite significantly less blood and drenched.
Issa will ignore Xander and sit as far from him as she possibly can in the truck as we leave.
Werner will drive.
So I guess Peter could patch people up.
Apis mellifera, a European honeybee, falls from the flower that was its refuge the night before. It lands on the curbside of the road where people are milling about and walking and passing, and cars driving past, along with horses dragging carts. It takes flight to escape the busy central district of the small town. Exhausted and confused, it gets caught on the northern breeze, carried for most of the morning through the clouds, high up into the mountain ranges to the north. It lands within a small courtyard of an old dilapidated castle that's filled with a platoon of soldiers and tents It lands completely exhausted, glows a bright yellow before vanishing, leaving the small trace of a tear in the space-time continuum.
The Carbon Gray role-playing game is published by Magnetic Press, starring SPG as Peter, Shadow as Xander, Ghost as Werner, Emily as Issa, and Raven Insane as the storyteller. Sounds and music are from Sirenscape and Epidemic Sound. Thanks very much for listening. Are the rest of you still there?
Yeah.
No, you guys don't hear that.
Nine.
No, we left.